Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Hope you guys are doing well today. We're going to take a look at all of the major astrological transits for the month of May, give a little sneak preview of those. As you guys know, after we lay out all the major transits for the month, if you continue watching my channel as the month goes on, you'll see me unpack most of those transits individually at length and in greater depth and detail. So today is sort of just the big picture. Of course, we're also going to be doing horoscopes for the month of May and picking a few of the biggest transits of the month to focus on for all 12 rising signs. Of course, you could listen for your sun sign as well. So that will be coming out this week as well. A bunch of big stuff happening in the month of May, although I think you'll all be glad to hear that it's a little less turbulent than the month of April. We had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. We had eclipse season, a bunch of really powerful transits, including a Mercury retrograde. And this month is not as intense, I will say that. And we have arguably what I think is maybe the most subjectively positive moon cycle of the year, which I think will be good news for everyone. And that's something we'll look at today as well. So anyway, that is our agenda for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections if you have them. If you have a story to share from any of the major things that have happened lately, I'm going to be putting a storytelling episode together sometime in May or maybe June after I gather enough on maybe Jupiter-Uranus or the eclipses. So send us your story. You can use the email address grabbed@nightlightastrology.com or just use the hashtag grabbed and then tell us the transit and then put your story into the comments section. We aggregate those, and so just don't share anything you don't want us to use in a storytelling episode. You can find transcripts of any of my daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And promotions for the day, there are two, and I'm going to share with you my website, nightlightastrology.com. Pretty simple. We've got live talks coming up in the month of May. We're going to be previewing Neptune's movement into Aries. So that doesn't happen for a year, but Neptune is culminating at the final degree of Pisces, turning retrograde. So it's a good time to sort of preview the major outer planetary change that's coming up next year. In June, I'll be looking at the 12th house. In July, I'll be looking at Uranus shifting into Gemini, which happens about a year from this summer. So if you missed any of the talks on the outer planets in love, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto, you can also pick those up under the shop tab. The other thing I'm promoting is a first-year program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, the title of the first-year program in Ancient Hellenistic Astrology. Of course, everything that we teach at Nightlight also comes from a very deep background in archetypal and psychological astrology. But this course in Ancient Hellenistic Astrology is going to give you the framework that you need to develop a natal chart practice if you want to practice professionally. Year 1 and 2 together really are what you need to be completely prepared in terms of our curriculum. But year 1 is a great starting point. And this program is also really accessible for people who just want to learn more about astrology for the sake of your own spiritual growth and development. There is nothing that I can think of for people who like astrology better than not having to completely rely upon the astrologer, another astrologer, right? Like people like me, even though I'm so glad to be a source of information for people and an expert astrologer, it really does help to develop your own knowledge and expertise, like to be able to have some interpretive clout, to be able to like weigh in on what's happening is super important. And this is a program that will set you up to be able to work with your own chart, the charts of people that you're close with, even if you have no intention of practicing professionally. This is like putting a GPS system into your car, in terms of like, it just, there's nothing that it doesn't help with when you're looking at the kinds of events that we're dealing with day in and day out, and being able to contextualize them and place them into an enchanted and magical, meaningful spiritual framework. So anyway, you'll hear me after today's video. I'll stick around, and there's an in-depth discussion of the course and what it includes that I've tagged onto the end of the videos leading up to enrollment and the start of class in June. At the bottom of the page, you'll find the early bird payment. That's available till May 15th, so you only have a little bit more time to save. Early bird installment plan, meaning the tuition payment plan that spreads it out over 12 months, also a discounted payment plan. Those go up in cost after May 15th, so be sure to take advantage of those now. If you are someone who needs tuition assistance, meaning a sliding scale that fits for your budget because you're experiencing financial constraints or limitations, you're on a fixed budget, you are a single parent, whatever the case may be, We don't want people to be priced out from studying something that is sacred. And so, if you could use that, please do. We ask people to just honestly assess where they're at. Use our early bird prices and sale or normal tuition if you can. If you cannot, and you still really need to, you still really want to take the course and you need to use that, then no problem. We're glad to make sure it's there for people. Okay. Excuse me. So, let's now shift gears to talking about the astrology of May. Now, I'm just going to be running through these, as you guys know. I run through these pretty quickly compared to the like depth of treatment that we use as the month unfolds for each one of them. We're sort of just giving ourselves the highlights right now. And I need to plug just a few more things in here. There we go. Okay. So I am going to start with some of the bigger energies of them. I tend to cover the ones that are the biggest, right? I tend to look at the what are going to be the most dynamic aspects of the month, which means I don't cover every last fast moving sextile, for example. So anyway, we're going to start with May 7th because that's when things really get cooking. We've got a new moon in Taurus on May 7th that is, I think, maybe the most positive, subjectively positive looking new moon cycle of the year. Here we have in the moon cycle, Venus in her own home sign. We have Jupiter there along, just separating from Uranus, and we have an exalted new moon. So we have both benefics plus an exalted moon at the start of the cycle, and we still have that Jupiter Uranus signature in the air. The other thing that's happening very slowly as the cycle progresses is Jupiter is going through the death and rebirth of Cazimi. So we have this sort of death and rebirth of benefic Jupiter. We have Venus and Jupiter is, in the same sign to start, an exalted moon in the same sign, and that very exciting dynamic of Jupiter Uranus, sort of revolutionary energy, all toning the entirety of the lunar cycle. That's why it's so exciting. That's a very powerful Taurian sort of Venusian cycle ahead, with the resounding symbolism of Jupiter Uranus still in the air. So I love this moon cycle. I circled it at the beginning of the year as one that I think will be, insofar as we're looking for an enhancement of things like ease, peace, security, stability, sort of that Venusian power, the earthy Venusian power of the bull. This is a great cycle for that. It depends, of course, on where it lands in your natal chart, what it's configured to. That can be highly subjective, and make it all the more specific. But a new moon in Taurus looking like this with a reset from Jupiter really feels like the process of death and rebirth. Just so powerful with a benefic in Jupiter, and coming out of all of the turbulence of the last cycle. I feel like we're starting to move into some of the more sort of bountiful, beautiful, luxurious, stabilizing, peaceful qualities of Taurus, which this breakthrough has, in a sense, been helping us to move toward. But we've had to come along through some very intense, like transits in the sign of Aries, the Mercury retrograde, the eclipse, and we had a lot of there's Mars Saturn energy that was in the air last month. So really moving into what looks like a much more peaceful and uplifting moon cycle. So I'll just say that for starters. We're going to be breaking it down in depth as we get closer to it. Now, on the 13th of May, we're going to move this forward just a little bit. You'll see this is one of the most exciting dynamics of the month. Now, notice Venus is still right there. She's protected from combustion by virtue of being in her own sign. That's called being in your own chariot. And coming into the conjunction with Jupiter, so we're seeing a Jupiter that is being burnt up and reborn. That could be a little problematic for Jupiter, but it's also a sign of rebirthing for Jupiter that makes a certain kind of sense when you consider that Jupiter and Uranus just conjoined as well. So we're continuing to see the promise of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction playing out as Jupiter is about to go through the Cazimi. But here on May 13th, the Sun and Uranus are conjoined, and that is just more fuel on the fire of revolution. And in the sign of Taurus, again, it doesn't always appear as flashy and combustible as it might in, say, Aries or something. You're thinking about a revolution in Venus's fixed Earth sign. You're thinking about things that shifts that are being made with respect to deep, earthy Venusian structures. The question of what is pleasurable, what is beautiful, what is solid, what is stable, and significant changes around those things coming up. So I really like this. Think it's a nice, Sun Uranus is going to continue hitting on the themes of revolution, disruption to norms, but in the name of this kind of expansion that has been asserting itself since April 20th with the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. So take a look at Sun conjoined Uranus in the middle of the month as one of the most potent transits of the month. On May 17th, Mercury will square Pluto. Here we go. And this is from Taurus right here to Aquarius. Of course, Pluto's turning retrograde at the beginning of May, so it's kind of finished its piece of work that it's done since the early part of the year, moving into the first couple degrees of Aquarius, now turning retrograde. It's heading back toward its very last stay in the last degree of Capricorn, which will happen by around the end of the year, having it like September to November. But anyway, Mercury's square to Pluto is also, it's a dynamic period of time where, especially from a fixed earth sign to a fixed air sign, you're really thinking about ideas and how ideas have the power to shape or reshape very tangible earthy things, which could have to do with our bodies, have to do with the environment we live in. But earth signs get things done. They like to have their hands on the actual substance of life, whereas Aquarius is like the galaxy brain. So you put the two together and you're really thinking about how ideas are shifting, how plans are changing, how you might be implementing new ideas or revising ideas in order to fine tune something on the level of Earth. So I like that transit. We'll be spending definitely a lot of time on that one as it comes around. On May 18th, right afterward, this is one of the busiest weeks of the year because of from the 13th to the 18th, we've got Sun conjunct Uranus, Mercury square Pluto, and then Venus on the 18th will conjoin Uranus. So now we're getting the ruler of the Jupiter-Uranus dynamic moving across Uranus. That's a very potent exchange because now we're getting to the heart of what was behind or what is within this revolutionary space. We're talking about everything that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction had in mind. What did it desire? What was it about? What were the ideals of beauty, peace, luxury, wealth, stability, enjoyment, power, and potency on the level of Venus? What was it all about? Well, Venus hitting Uranus is an opportunity for us to see it just really flashing and flourishing and also changing. As revolutionary impulses come through, the energy is so wild and we think we know where things are going, but we don't always know exactly where they're heading. So this will also be a chance for us to do some more immediate and revising or shifting of some of our plans and visions that have been maybe affected through Jupiter and Uranus coming together in April. So it's like we've gotten a taste for this revolutionary impulse, and Venus hitting Uranus may further refine or revise some of what we've been doing. It's giving us a kind of feedback. It's also a blossoming period. So we're going to start to see some of what that conjunction was all about, like coming into manifestation. On May 18th, the same exact day, we also have the Sun and Jupiter conjoining. So this is the rebirth of Sun and Jupiter, where we now see that there's this kind of fullness of Jupiter. So you're getting this, Jupiter's kind of getting burnt up a little bit, although there's some really nice energies in Taurus that I think will protect Jupiter from becoming like maniacal or crazy. But this reset moment for Jupiter is hugely important on the 18th as Venus conjoins Uranus. We're also just reconfiguring and resetting things on multiple levels. The Sun-Jupiter conjunction is also about the empowerment of our ideals. And if you think about Jupiter as an embodiment of wisdom and as setting forth the ideal of something, in terms of how ordered and beautiful and well arranged and cohesive it can be, that's Jupiter. Jupiter, for example, is like a well-designed and well-arranged subway system where it all just works together smoothly as one, we know that that's not super realistic, but that's ideally what Jupiter is. So Jupiter Sun conjunction speaks to the resetting and the resetting and sort of emerging of a new vision of what um, coherence and order and beauty can look like. So it's like a new plan, a new vision, and all of this is still following on the new moon in Taurus, the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus. Another powerful dynamic in the month is a trine that takes place between the Sun and Pluto. This happens around May 22nd, where you can see that there's, when the Sun and Pluto trine one another in air signs, you can expect that there's going to be a mobilization of like intellectual resources, ideas, plans, strategies, thoughts, communication that's powerful and empowering. But also, some of it may include having to look at the kind of shadows within something, within a process, within a structure, and starting to become clear about the risks or the things lying beneath the surface that could be problematic, and how do we address them. But also, just like the smooth, harmonious connection between these two planets will be very empowering on the level of mind, speech, and communication. More on that later in the month. On May 23rd, then we have one of the most benefic conjunctions of the year in Jupiter and Venus getting together at the very last degree of Taurus. Now, that culmination of Venus and Jupiter in Taurus, people are like, oh, it's at the anaretic degree, or something like that. And this is just there's when it comes to benefic conjunctions, there's hardly ever any combination of Venus Jupiter conjoining that doesn't have some really, really nice potential behind it. So don't go looking for problems more than you ought to with this one. Of course, anytime Venus and Jupiter get together, there can be a level of like excessiveness, or something can be just too much. But it's also, generally speaking, especially considering Jupiter Uranus coming together, this was the ruler of the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, that this is a nice moment of flourishing and blossoming that's happening right as both planets are also ready to change signs and move into Gemini, where there's, I think, some magic that's coming up in the sign of Gemini for Jupiter as well. Anyway, May 23rd, you'll have a full moon in Sagittarius. That comes at the same time as the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So as those two planets are conjoining, you'll see full moon in Sag. The full moon in Sag is happening so the ruler of the full moon is Jupiter conjoining with Venus. So a pretty benefic signature around the full moon overall. It helps that, sometimes when the full moon can't see its ruler, it's problematic. But the thing is that Jupiter is going to be entering Gemini like imminently, at which point then you are placing it into position with the where it sees where the full moon was. So I would really say this is a very benefic full moon, and one of the better like cycles of the year, all things considered. Anyway, on the 25th, Venus will trine Pluto. So you have more air energy coming in. So Venus trining Pluto, again, it speaks to like some really positive developments on the level of mind, understanding, skill, technique, intellect, communication, technology, really positive things coming in as the month goes on, things that could be very empowering. Of course, with Pluto retrograde, you also might be looking at the need to like install new programs basically, and revise existing programs on the level of procedure, technique, strategy. It's like implementing new ideas in harmonious ways, stuff like that. On May 25th, then Jupiter will enter Gemini, and now we have the Jupiter-Pluto trine starting to form, which will fully form by June. So we'll be talking about that next month. But that is more of the same. You have the idea of systems of knowledge and information that are trying to be implemented as a matter of growing something larger and more overarching, Pluto and Aquarius. And so really interesting to see what's going to be happening around things like systems of thought, information, ideas. It's kind of like scaffolding and architecture that's being installed. And I love that this is happening coming off the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. It's as though whatever beautiful vision was provided, now we're getting into the space of starting to lay out blueprints and designs and starting to build things more, and adjust things conceptually as Jupiter enters Gemini. And then finally, on May 31st, Mercury will conjoin Uranus. So you're getting into this space right at the very end of the month. The Mercury-Uranus conjunction, again, Mercury being the host of all those planets in Gemini, really feels to me like ideas, plans, thoughts, strategies, understanding, technology, systems of knowledge or information are just going through this really interesting and rapid series of changes right around the end of May. So, love all of these transits. It will be fun to unpack them as the month goes on. Um, I don't know if I had to like put it simply. The new moon in Taurus is a huge, very positive looking new moon. It's very interesting to see that there's a bunch of conjunctions of Uranus. Sun conjoined Uranus, Venus conjoined Uranus. There's a Jupiter cazimi in Taurus. Then there's the Venus conjoined Jupiter at the end of Taurus. So much energy in Taurus. A lot of benefic energy there too, with both Venus and Jupiter. So yeah, I feel like, there's always things you can find that are concerning, but compared to last month, I feel like this month is pretty, subjectively, it just looks like there's a lot more stable, peaceful energy, less like, that so much Aries last month, right? The Mercury retrograde, the solar eclipse. I mean, Venus was in Aries, so this month things look like more, there's action, but things look a little bit more stable. Things get a little bit more exciting and shifty toward the very end of the month, when Gemini starts coming in. That'll be fun to talk about. We're really going to focus on that, especially the Jupiter-Pluto trine from Gemini to Aquarius next month. That'll be a big focus of ours. We'll be spending a lot of time on that, as well as previewing what the significations of Jupiter moving into Gemini look like. And that'll probably be covered in horoscopes as well. Anyway, that's it. If you guys want to stick around, after I sign off, you'll hear me talk about the upcoming program, our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology with an archetypal psychological background. That program begins June 16th. After I sign off, you can hear me tell you more about what the program includes, how it works, how you can sign up. Remember, the early bird sale and the early bird payment plans are only on sale until May 15th. So you have a little bit more time to save. After that, and anytime leading up to the course, you can always use the need-based tuition if you are someone who could use a little help to make the program happen. We get it. We want to make sure that the course is accessible. All right, that's it for today. Take it easy. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, my year one course in ancient Hellenistic astrology that begins on June 16th. If you'd like to learn more about it, of course, you can always do some digging and looking at the course page on your own. I'll take you over there right now and walk you through it. But if you want to, you can go over yourself and look. Nightlightastrology.com is the website. Click on the courses tab and go to the first year course. This is the one that begins on June 16th, the perfect place to start for people who would like to learn more about natal astrology from the Hellenistic point of view. So this is a one-year course in Hellenistic astrology, which is the oldest form of astrology, and it is the form from which all subsequent forms of astrology come from. It shares a lot in its roots with ancient Indian astrology. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what characterizes Hellenistic astrology, but just to familiarize you with this page, when you go to the first year course page and scroll down, you can learn more about everything that's included in the course. Some of the main features include 30 classes on the year. These classes are spread out through units of curriculum. And in between the major units of curriculum, we have breakout study sessions led by our tutoring staff. We also have an interactive group forum discussion that is staffed with tutors year-round. You always get your questions answered within 24 hours. So there's a lot of support built into the program as we work our way through the curriculum. We also have recommended reading, listening, optional quizzes, flashcards, bonus lectures, more than you could possibly read in a year, honestly. So we just have a large and long biography and sort of library of suggested bonus content that will fill in blanks and also supplement and deepen the material that we are studying. You get lifetime access to all the recordings. If you cannot attend the webinars live, they meet on the weekends, but if you can't attend them live, then you are welcome to follow along with the recordings, which are made available to you on the class website. So this class meets on Sundays from noon Central to 2 p.m. Central, or 1 Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And you might translate that, I guess, if you're on the West Coast, it would be 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time. During the program, in addition to working our way through all of the major curriculum, the major foundational elements of Hellenistic astrology, we place a strong emphasis on preparing ourselves to read charts for other people. Whether this is a hobby for you or something that you are endeavoring to practice professionally, the course is built for people who are really there for a lot of different reasons. This is your hobby, this is your passion. You hope to do this for really no one other than yourself, or maybe friends or family, or someone who really decides they want to start a practice. You can take this class at whatever level of interest or depth that you want because of the amount of material that we make available to you inside and outside of class. You always have access to the program too, so you can always, take it at your own pace. You can attend live, follow along with the recordings, some combination of both. And then the breakout study sessions are really helpful, in addition to our interactive group forum discussion. You can always ask us questions. You can email me anytime with questions. So we have a lot of support in place. Now, the curriculum, we move through the foundational elements of ancient astrology. You may look at the curriculum and say, well, I know something about these things already, but not really, not unless you've studied Hellenistic astrology, because the way that ancient astrologers talked about houses, signs, planets, aspects, essential dignities, chart delineation is radically different from what most people learn when they start studying modern astrology. The reason for that is that it's only been in the past couple of decades that we have finally had access to the vast majority of ancient texts on Hellenistic astrology. We were literally missing the bulk of our ancient tradition. So the kind of rebirth or reawakening of ancient astrology is really new, which makes this very exciting because everything you've learned in modern astrology is probably coming from the lens of what is called psychological astrology, which is a way of looking at the birth chart in terms of the planets, signs, houses, and the way in which they may relate to your psychological makeup or profile. In this way, birth charts are a little bit like an elaborate Myers-Briggs. So you have the personality profiling, which is the way that most people look at planets, houses, and signs. So you'll notice my Mars, my Venus, and they think of them as aspects or dimensions of your character and personality. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we utilize much of the same language, and we certainly have that approach available to us in this program because ancient astrologers also looked at the chart in terms of psychological makeup. However, one of the main distinctions between modern astrology and ancient astrology is the emphasis that ancient astrologers placed on prediction. They looked at the chart in terms of a field of karma that defines the native or the individual's fate or destiny. And so we look at houses, signs, planets, aspects as a way of understanding what patterns, themes, and topics are going to be most prevalent and at what times, because they also had a very elaborate system of timing techniques. The year one program is all about learning to read the birth chart and understanding the ancient Hermetic sort of Platonic Pythagorean philosophy that was behind the establishment of all of the doctrines and teachings of astrology itself. So it's really about understanding where everything comes from. It's the why behind everything that greatly empowers people when they're learning astrology. It is not nearly the same when you just study lists of adjectives and descriptions for houses, signs, planets, aspects. We want to understand why. Why do we do these things at all? Where did it all come from? And when you understand that, then you have something like a skeleton key by means of which you can access your own creativity, your own intuition, rather than being told, just play these notes in this order and it will sound good. You're learning to improvise. Which, could anyone ever want to play? Why would you want to play an instrument if someone told you, well, here's how to play it. Play this, play that. And you never learned how to play something of your own, or you never learned how to use the scales in ways that were magical and, pertain to your own genie, your own genius. So when we study ancient astrology, one of the main things we're doing is we're taking people beyond anything that they think they've learned about houses, signs, planets, aspects, and we're teaching them where it all came from. And once you have that, then you're really cooking with fire. You have a magical, intuitive capacity that is very rare and precious in astrology. So anyway, we move through a lot of different elements, but not in the way that you've ever learned them before. And that's a really important distinction. So anyway, after all of that has been said, in each unit, we spend, maybe up to 10 hours on houses. And then we have a breakout study session, and then we have reading and bonus material. So when we talk about houses in this class, you are learning where the concept of a house ever came from in the first place, what it is, how it works, and how it's different from a sign. You're also going to unlearn and break a lot of bad habits, because not by any intentional ignorance, but modern astrology, being bereft of its ancient textual tradition, has been teaching a lot of things that are just not in line with where the actual the actual theoretical foundations of astrology come from. So you're also going to break some bad habits, which is really good for people who maybe know a little bit about astrology already, but are seeking to clarify and understand theory in the context of the 2,000-year history of astrology. So anyway, this class is going to prepare you to read birth charts for other people, but then by the end, one of the great things about the program is that the way we do that is not just by pumping you full of theory and history and philosophy. We are also, in the last portion of the program, inviting live clients into the class. And that's great because when we have live clients come in, you're going to see me read from them using the theory and techniques that we've been studying. And you're going to see how they can be applied artfully, as well as, giving you some tools and methods and techniques to use to set you up for success. Seeing live astrology practice while studying it is the best way to learn. So the last portion of the program, we turn toward that hands-on approach. Anyway, so that's a bit about the program. If you have any questions you want to ask, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We're happy to answer any questions you have whatsoever. I also want to point people to the payment options at the bottom. Early bird payment saves you $500 off. That is a great way to save. The payment plan is breaking the tuition into 12 monthly installments. If that works better for you, no worries, you can do that. And then need-based tuition. We, for many, many years now, dating back to 2010 when I started teaching astrology, I've always had some kind of sliding scale option available for people when studying astrology. Sacred science like this should be accessible to people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So we pride ourselves on making sure that there is tuition assistance available, so that if your budget doesn't match with the payment price that we ask for, and that's an honest assessment that we trust you to make, that you can take advantage of the tuition assistance and set your price within a sliding scale that we provide for your monthly tuition for 12 months through the program. So please feel free to apply for that if it makes sense to you. We don't want people hurting themselves or overextending themselves. A price that fits your budget is available through the need-based tuition. We just ask that you apply early because we do fill up sometimes. So anyway, that is it. I hope that you will consider studying with us, and thanks for taking time to learn more about the program. See you later.